sent me a few text messages saying, Julian, help! Hi, Catherine.
Okay, Julian, I suggest we get started.
Yes, that's fine. Ready
Okay,
to go.
perfect. You've got enough tea?
I'm down to half a pint, but
Okay,
the mug that's as big as my head.
excellent. Well, I'm going to rely on the audience to let us know how the audio and the video quality is. If there are any problems, please let us know. But first of all, I just want to thank everyone for joining us on your Tuesday evening. Hopefully it's a bit more friendly than having to head out in the cold to one of the PIN or the progressive meetings up and down the country. And we just thought that, you know, Julie and I have spoken several times now, we've met several times, we get on particularly well, and we thought we would pool our resources and our audience to share some of his great knowledge on HMO investing. As everyone knows, HMOs are the buzzword of 2015. And you know, as this evening shows, there are a lot of people really interested in how to make more money from them. So we thought we'd put this on. It's going to be very informal. We are basically going to have a Q&A session for the next hour or so. We're happy to stay around and ask questions as long as you guys have them to ask, although I've got a flight on Thursday morning around 9 a.m., so we need to be done by then at worst. But as way of an introduction, my name is Mike Stenhouse. I am a letting agent by trade in Stockport, just south of Manchester. And I also host the Inside Property Investing podcast, where we interview inspiring and successful property investors from all walks of life, really. We've had guests like Vanessa Warwick from Property Tribes, Steve Bolton, the founder of Platinum Property Partners, Ashley Berry, who is a huge advocate of HMO properties and a huge industry advisor. Julian was one of our first guests talking about his unlicensed HMOs, and we've had a whole host of people on there. So if you're interested in learning the stories about some of these property investors, how they got started, what successes and failures they've had along the way, and some advice for people who are either new to the industry or looking to take their investing to the next level, the Inside Property Investing podcast comes out 3 times a week. And you can find it either via this website that you're on or through iTunes. So that's me in a nutshell. I've been investing myself as well for about 10 years, and I'm really trying to step that up now. We've had some success, but it's time to take that to the next level. So Julian, can I pass over to you to briefly introduce yourself?
I am. I suppose you would. Most people would call me a builder by trade, although I probably would never admit that I'm a builder. But I found myself being put into that position purely because I started renovating properties after I was a property sourcing agent. I was an estate agent, was a letting agent, long time back. Started sourcing properties, and as soon as I started refurbishing them and handing them to letting agents, those same letting agents started coming back to me saying, we'd love you to do refurbs for our clients. So me and my team became me and several teams, and then when we went through a fantastic property boom, I was never quiet. I was always busy, which meant that I really didn't start investing till quite late. But I've been renovating property pretty much non-stop for the last 15 years. Pretty much every single one of them has been for investors, and very few domestic projects, mainly investment properties. Done a lot of student refurbs, a lot of HMO refurbs, and then recently I've been investing in HMOs myself, but I've cherry-picked my way through. I've seen a lot of people fail. I've seen people come and go, and I've kind of, like I say, cherry-picked my way through everything that I've seen, and I've applied all that into my own boutique HMO strategy. So I'm still refurbishing properties, sourcing properties for myself, and also doing just telling people about what I do. And I've done this HMO manual as well. So doing lots of stuff, but mainly in investment property and HMOs in particular. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense, yeah. Now, some people are saying I have a bit of interference when I'm speaking now. I'm going to blame that on you, Julian. So just thanks for being my scapegoat. I don't know what the problem is, but I'm not going to be speaking a huge amount tonight anyway. Mostly I will be asking the questions. So if you have any questions for Julian, feel free to type them into the chat box, and I'll host the evening and make sure that Julian's kept on track with his answers. But in the main, it's going to be Julian sharing his insight and knowledge from years of developing, as he's just said. So you don't need to worry about my poor quality too much.
Michael, can you do me a quick favour before we get started? Can you just get me a link to the Facebook, to your page, so I can see I can't see the questions, so email it. Can you just fire over an email or a link to it on here or something?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just lost it.
Okay, no problem. I'll send it over now, Julian.
Okay.
Okay, you should have that in your email in a second. Now, once you have that, let me know, and I'll get started with the first question.
Yeah, you can get started with the first question. That's fine. You just carry on.
Okay, perfect. Well, the first question we had sent through in advance was about room sizes for HMOs. What are the average suggested legal room sizes for both single and double bedrooms in an HMO?
Okay. So, according to the document that I have here, it says here that let's have a look. HMO rooms, hostels, use of occupiers, sole use of occupiers. It says here, if you've got a combined kitchen with living room, one person's one. It's very complicated. That's the question. That's the answer. It's very complicated. I've got down here number of persons for one person. It is 6.5 meters squared. If it's two people, it's 10 meters squared. What have we got here?
So this is building regs you're talking about, yeah? So this is the legal requirement.
Yeah. So where the room is for the sole use of the occupiers, it's 6.5 meters squared for one person, and 10 square meters for two persons. But what I would say, it says here, number of persons, where the room is shared. Yeah, I've got down here, it says 6.5 meters squared if it's one person. It's 10 square meters if it's two people. But what I would say to that question, I wouldn't put it down, personally, I wouldn't put it down to what the legal requirements are. I would look at whether people are going to actually rent that room from you, if it's a small bedroom. I've come across this before where a property had one small room, had like 5 bedrooms and one small room, and we did squeeze in it was just came in at the right size. We put a 3/4 bed in it, a wardrobe with a combi wardrobe, and to make the room more attractive, we put a TV on the wall. And they just found it really, really difficult to rent that room out. I think they found one person, and then after about 3 months, he left. And it was decided that that room wouldn't be used as a bedroom. So the answer to that question is there are rules that state it should be a certain size. I'm not sure whether different councils give different sizes. I'm not sure about that. But what I would say is if it's a small room and you can't comfortably fit a bed in it and a wardrobe and a desk and have a bit of living space, then it's going to be too small. If there is a living room, if there's a separate living room, then you might get away with it. If you're trying to squeeze rooms in where you're not going to have a living room and you're going to have, let's say, a kitchen dining space, then I just personally wouldn't entertain a small room at all.
And when you say fit a bed in there, are you talking about a double bed, a 3/4 bed, a single bed? Well,
you've got it's called a 3/4 bed, and that's a 4 foot wide bed. A normal double will be 4'6". So if you put a 4-foot bed in, it'll look like a double, but it won't be a double bed. It'll be smaller. So if it is a small room, put a 4-foot bed in. I would never put a single bed in a HMO, in a professional HMO.
Yeah,
Not
and
a professional HMO.
I'd completely echo that. We have had people in the past come to us and say, like, I can split this reasonably large double into 2 small rooms, and where I might have got £400 for the double, hopefully I'll get £300 for the 2 singles, so I'm getting £200 more rent a month. But the reality is they do that, and those 2 rooms sit empty, and they're actually £400 a month worse off rather than £200 a month better off. So
what does that say? What does that say to you if someone does that? Because I see it all the time.
Yeah.
But what does that say to you?
Well, to me, it says, first of all, they haven't done their homework. They don't understand their tenants. There's no demand for those size of rooms, but they are probably a little naive in thinking that they're chasing every last penny, but they're losing out on the pounds in the long run.
I see it happen so often where people do that. I've seen it being done on a kind of corporate level, and nightmare, where people have chopped up properties, made the rooms too small, and no one wants them. A recipe for disaster. On paper, they look great. The person selling them or packaging the deal will go, look at the numbers. You've got 6 rooms at $400 a month, but in reality, you've got 6 tiny rooms in a rabbit hutch that nobody wants. So I'd just be very careful of that.
Absolutely agree. Let's try to keep these answers short and snappy, so we can get through a few of them. Someone has obviously picked up on something you've said at an event they've seen you speak at, because they're insinuating that you've previously said you do not recommend en suites, and they want to know why you don't recommend en suites in HMO rooms.
And you want a quick answer?
Well, no, we can dive into this one in a bit of detail.
Why do I not think en suites are okay? First of all, I'll put a disclaimer on this, because I'm not. There's some fantastic, very successful people around that are saying, no, we should put in en suites. But I was thinking about this today. Before I came to PIN, before I came to property investor networking events, I was just refurbishing properties for landlords without knowing the rules. I just did them how I thought was right, because I knew that they would rent out. I would get better rents if I did things this way. I had no training. This is just how I was doing it, and I never put in en suites. I was just doing, I've done 6, 7, 8 bed properties none of them with en suites, but they've had shared facilities, mixture of students and professional, but high-end student stuff. And never, ever, ever been a problem. When I've been doing a full refurb, I'll normally put them on the market. If it's for me, generally not for me, but if it's for my clients, that's because I never get round to it for me. But for my clients, I'll start marketing these properties way before I'm finished. And then on completion, they're all rented out. And none of these have had en suites. That's one reason, because I've never done it, and it's never been a problem. Second reason is I am a qualified plumber, and I know how much these things cost, and how much damage that they can cause if you have a leak that's ongoing, that's not sorted out. I also know that most letting agents, I've not really come across a letting agent with a jobbing contractor that actually does a really good job. And I think a shower room, an ensuite, needs quality maintenance. You can't just botch job an ensuite shower if it needs resealing or stuff like that. So I just think they look manky after a while. They're very expensive, and I think if you take the cost over the lifetime of the shower compared to the uplift in rent, compared to something else, I mean, I can achieve the same thing with some nice cushions and a couple of nice mirrors, finish it off nice, and achieve the same if not better results. And the other thing I would say is it's easier to get a shower room fitted than it is to get someone to buy accessories and make things look pretty. You can't find people to stage a property. I've not found any HMO staging people, so there's a niche there probably. But I think it's easier to get contractors to put in an ensuite than it is to find a contractor to nicely stage a house. And I think staging a house is a much better way of doing it and a lot cheaper. It's a day trade. It's a day trip, and I've never done it, and I just won't do it because I know it's a pointless exercise. I think the only time an ensuite is necessary is if, let's say, a bathroom in a property is in an odd position. Let's say if it's in a top floor and none of the other rooms have got showers in them or en suites or anything like that. So people on the bottom floor have got to go all the way to the top to get to the bathroom. Then I'd put in en suites in the right locations, but just a nightmare. Just a nightmare. A very expensive way of adding value to a property. The other reason is because I think they downvalue property as well. Because you've got to take them out to turn that property back into a domestic accommodation. It becomes an investment property once you've done it. There's no going back once you've done it at all.
Yeah, there's a couple of good points there, Julian. What you were saying there about not having people going from the ground floor up to the loft for a shower. We try to suggest that people shouldn't have to go up or down more than one flight of stairs to get to the bathroom. The other thing that you mentioned about designing and styling the property is this mindset that with HMOs, when you're flipping properties, when you're doing them up to sell on, to an extent it's more like wholesaling. When you're renting out rooms in an HMO, you're really retailing, and you need to think of that retailer mindset, the window shopping, the window displays, dress your room as if you're selling it rather than just painting everything magnolia. And we'll get into that design side of things a bit later, because that's really coming to
on suites is because I went and did a quote for somebody a few months back, and I was one of, this was the same thing. We're going to get 3 contractors round. We want to go through the project with you. It had all been drawn out by an architect. 8-bed, turning a house into an 8-bed, lovely house into an 8-bed HMO. Every room had an ensuite, and it would have taken the job so way over budget. It would have made it unpractical. And I just think that sometimes it's just the default position. If there's a bedroom, put an ensuite. And there was an estate agent there showing us around who was at that time renting shared accommodation. And I said to her in front of these guys that were asking me to do this quote, I was talking to the guy, I said, look, if we chop these rooms up, it's going to make them smaller. I said, what would you rather have? Would you rather have a larger room, or would you rather have a smaller room with an ensuite? And she said, definitely, I'd have a larger room. And I come across this all the time. I've asked people, at property, when I was doing the PIN graduate, I was speaking to a guy called Colin, who's a very successful HMO investor, and I asked him the same question. He'd been in shared accommodation. He said, yeah, I'd rather have a bigger room. So, there's so many reasons why I wouldn't put in ensuites.
Okay, and Gemma has asked a follow-up question to this. With that ensuite mindset, what would you recommend as the ideal bedroom to bathroom ratio?
3 normally, 4 maximum.
Okay.
And if it's 4, it is pushing it, but you can do it. But you better do a nicer job on everything else.
Yeah, and perhaps try to squeeze in maybe a separate WC if possible.
I've currently got 2 4s with 1 bathroom in.
Okay.
Fortunately, it's just the kind of location. I've got people in there that are using the property as a base more than anything. They don't stay a lot of them don't stay weekends, and it's never really come up that they're all sharing 1 bathroom. It's never really come up. Although it's not my preferred route, I couldn't have put another bathroom in that property or a toilet. It was just how it was.
Yeah.
But I haven't priced the rooms stupidly. I've kept them within a good. I've priced the rooms competitively. But if I would have had to chop up the property to create another bathroom, it would have just caused a problem. So, I'm not being greedy on the rent, but I haven't found it a problem. I've got a solicitor there. I've got another guy that works for a company. He's up on during the week. He's down with his family on weekends. These are proper professional people. I've not had anything, but that's Wakefield. If you go down to London, it might be a different thing. If you go to a smarter location, it might be different. So, I don't want to give a sweeping statement to say the whole of the country has to have, don't put en suites. But, we're talking about young people here. Most of the people that are renting HMOs are young people. They want to have a bit of fun. They want a nice place to live. And I can give you so many different. I mean, we could probably look on Spare Room now and see loads of properties with en suites. They're empty because they look rubbish. If it looks rubbish, you put an ensuite in, it's still going to look rubbish. You've got to get people in.
Yeah. Someone's just asked to clarify: is that 4 people or 4 rooms? Now, typically
People,
when
yeah,
we
four
do,
people. 4 people, yeah.
yeah.
I wouldn't have 2 people in a bedroom. I wouldn't. I mean, I let you know. I'm not going to stop tenants having their boyfriends or girlfriends around. I'm not that kind of a landlord that's too strict. I don't have, a massive, massive, massive portfolio that I have to be so strict on everything, and nail everything down to the point where you've got set rules. But no, I do. Yeah, I wouldn't. I wouldn't have 2 people sharing a room. So
Okay.
if it's 4 rooms, it's 4 rooms. So between 4 rooms, and I'm assuming that those 4 rooms have got one person in. Their boyfriend or girl. I do say to tenants, I haven't got a problem with boyfriends or girlfriends staying around, as long as they don't cause a problem with other tenants. As long as I don't get complaints. If I get complaints, then I won't have it.
Okay. Now, we've had a couple of questions come through on the topic of buildings and renovations, Julian. So let's just focus on them for a little while. And the first one is whether you would use a main contractor or appoint individual contractors for each piece of work.
That's a really good question. I would say that, okay, if you've not refurbished a property before and you're not going to be hands-on, let's say you've got a job, you work during the week, then I can't see how you can do it any other way but use one main contractor. Unless you can find a team of contractors that works together. So first of all, I want to talk about main contractors for a minute. If you are going to use a main contractor, a building contractor, when they give you a quote, the first thing you need to ask them is, does that include VAT? Because a lot of builders, they'll put down the price, but they won't actually say whether they're VAT registered or not until you've given them the job and they start sending you invoices. So I'd be very careful of that one. They do it all the time. And the way a builder will work is they'll normally use subcontractors. So if they're a building contractor, they'll probably have some guys working with them, but they'll subcontract plumbing, they'll subcontract electrical work. Some of them might even subcontract bricklayers and so on and so forth. So you'll find that a builder will subcontract. But you know what? If you don't have the time to go running around organising people and reorganising people when they don't turn up, then you've got no choice but to use a main contractor. But I would check whether they're VAT registered or not. And if they're VAT registered, one thing that you could try doing is saying, well, look, if you're VAT registered, what if I pay your subcontractors direct and just pay you a fee to just manage them, so I can avoid paying all that VAT on some of the work. That's what I would do. See what they say about that one. And then if you want to use if you want to build a team of contractors, then you've just got to be aware of the fact that you've got to be very clear as to what materials you're going to be supplying and what you expect them to supply. And what I would suggest and recommend is that if you are using a team of contractors, that you ask them when they're doing their quote to include materials in their prices, because the last thing you want is to go running around buying. I know people are trying to save money on materials, but actually, if you have a problem with materials, let's say for example, you've ordered a kitchen and it doesn't turn up on time, and your team of contractors are all waiting on site, and you've got an electrician booked in and he can't come because the kitchen hasn't arrived, it's a nightmare. You're going to have to do so much running around. So if you are going to use, if you are going to build a team of people, you just have to be very clear as to what you're going to supply. And I would appoint a main person in that team who can be responsible for everybody. So, I'll give you a good example. I had a client of mine who I was training to be to manage refurbs themselves, and I went to a local networking meeting called Trades Hub, and I went deliberately to find a team of contractors, and I bumped into a guy who was a plumber, a gas engineer, and the first thing I said was, do you have a joiner that works with you? Do you have an electrician that works with you? And he had a whole team of guys with him. His brother was a joiner, his uncle was an electrician, and so on and so forth. And I said, well, look, would you work as a team? And he goes, yeah, I'll work as a team. And I said, well, what if my client pays you, a project management fee? Would you manage the project for her? and just manage your team? And he went, yeah. So it didn't take me long to build a team with one guy in charge. So you can build teams, and you've got to remember that contractors, like, you know, we all invest, you know, property investors network with other property investors. Contractors network with other contractors. You know, they're always working with other contractors. So you'll be surprised at how quick it is to build a team of contractors just by finding one person. You just have to ask them, you know, do you work with an electrician? Yes, I do. Well, can you get him to come along? And do you work with a gas engineer? Yeah. Well, can you give me his number? Can I get him to come along? You know, these people will know other people that they can bring in. And if they work together as a team before, that's the best way to do it. I wouldn't get a quote from a plasterer, a quote from an electrician, a quote from a gas engineer, a quote from a different joiner, a quote from a different decorator, unless they kind of knew each other.
Yeah, and on a similar vein, I again through the letting agency, actually, I joined a breakfast networking meeting called BNI, Business Networking International, I think it stands for, and that's a great place to meet trades. I think there are probably about 8 or 10 different meetings throughout Manchester, so there's going to be hundreds of them throughout the country. I showed up there. You can go along as a guest. You don't need to join, but just go up. Show up there, say what you're doing, and you will have, you know, a good group of contractors that have been vetted before, because it's all based on referral marketing. So they're only in that room if other people are recommending them, and you could walk away with a decent plumber, a decent electrician, a decent builder, and a decent joiner for, you know, the cost of 10 quid to go and have breakfast with some local businesses. And you never know who else you might meet as well. You might find investors in the room. You might find a decent letting agent or an estate agent that you can work with. It's, you know, networking events don't just need to be property related.
Another place to find contractors, if you go to your local plumbing supplier or electrical wholesaler, they normally have a board up where contractors pin their business cards. You'll find hundreds of contractors that way. Hundreds.
Yeah, really good point. And would you normally, this was a follow-up question from the same person actually, would you normally get multiple quotes for each piece of work? So you know, everyone recommends that you get 3 quotes for everything. That sounds like a lot of work. Do you go through that approach?
Never.
Okay.
The first contractor I found was the way I found my first contractor, and the way I've pretty much found everybody, is by well, I'll just tell you how I found my first contractor. I called up a landlord that I'd known for a while, somebody that I knew was fairly tight, actually, and I said, do you know a joiner? And he goes, yeah, I know a guy called Phil. And I called Phil, and Phil is possibly the best contractor I've ever come across. And then through him I met other people, and built a team really quickly from there. The joiner is pretty much the best person you should start with, because they tend to know lots of other people. And if they've fitted a kitchen, they'll normally have electricians and plumbers and all sorts around them. So yeah, that was what I did. I called up somebody and got somebody recommended, because to me it's all down to trust. You know, I don't want to be running around making sure people turn up, and price has got nothing to do with it, to be honest. Everyone's pretty much around the same price, but you know, I know that if I've got somebody that's working cheap, I know that then they're not going to be on the job all the time. They're going to be flitting between other jobs. They're going to be unreliable. So I know that I've got to pay people fairly, but as a result, I don't go over budget. You know, if I'm doing a project for somebody else, I give them a price. I give them a quotation. I don't give them an estimate. I give them a quotation. So I cannot go over budget at all. But I give them a realistic price for everything. They can choose me if they want me to work for them. I'll work for them. But you know, if you go cheap, you are going to find you're going to have problems, and that's happened to me pretty much every time. So I don't see the point in getting 3 prices, because it's not down to price. It's down to reliability and quality, and somebody actually doing the job properly, on time, and at the price they've said they're going to do it at. And you know, sometimes I need guys to go running around for things. So you know, for example, if you've got a kitchen being delivered, 10 out of 10 times there's going to be bits missing. So what if you're in a, you know, you've got a day's work booked in, you've got an important meeting planned, and you know, potentially viewings to do, and you're looking for properties, and you get a phone call to say, oh, this cupboard door's turned up without the hinges, can you go and get me a hinge? Or I'm going to be sitting here all day without finishing this kitchen. What are you going to do? You're going to break off from an important meeting or come away from a potential viewing that you've got to supply to go to Howden's and pick up a hinge? No, you want to be able to call him up and say, look, can you do me a favour? Can you just go and get it for me? And they'll and you know, if you pay people properly, they'll do it without question. They'll just go and do it.
Yeah.
If you cut people down with price, they'll go, oh no, I haven't got a van, or oh no, I can't do that. You're going to have to go and do it for me. I haven't got time to do this. I haven't got time to do that. No, I can't be bothered with that. Can't be bothered with that at all. So the answer to that question is no. I never get 3 people in. I just use people that I trust, and that's it.
Yeah, and it might take a while to get those people that you trust. You might have to get a few quotes on the first one, but after that, it really is, the value does come far more from having that reliable team than trying to screw everyone out of every last penny on the quotes.
I don't know. I mean, you know, we're all. I'm assuming that everybody that's listening to this is either in property or they're looking at getting into property. And you know, we've discussed this before about networking in property. You know, we was talking about how important it is to build your network before you actually get involved in it. If you've built your network properly, I pretty much can guarantee that you can pick up the phone tomorrow, phone somebody that is an investor and say, look, have you got anyone really good that you'd recommend to do this? And I reckon after a couple of phone calls, you'll find people. You get them round, you get them to do a quote, you give them the job. They've come recommended. If they're available, use them. And build the relationship with that person. You know, if someone that you know and that you can trust has recommended somebody, they're not going to be bad.
Yeah, no, it's very true.
Now, if you ask somebody, if you ask me to recommend a good solicitor, and then I call that person, am I going to get 3 other solicitors to come and quote for the job? No, I've asked for a recommendation. I'm going to use that person. No. So that's me anyway. Call me a fool.
No, it makes a lot of sense, and you've been through it enough times to know what you're talking about. So, what I want to do, Julian, your expertise really is on the design and styling of them. That's where I think you really come into your own. So, what I want to do is just share. We got an email from Jacqueline earlier. Now, hopefully, Jacqueline doesn't mind us sharing that she's successfully completed on a house today. I'm just going to share my screen and show you a couple of pictures of this this property that she's bought. So hopefully,
do I click on you, or do I go to the Inside Property Investing website and press play?
No, we should be good. I should be able to. You should be seeing my screen now.
Yes, I've got it. I can see it. Yes.
So this is actually the floor plan. Yeah. Now it's a little bit small, but on the ground floor, we're looking at a lounge, downstairs WC, dining kitchen, and then what looks like quite a large conservatory at the back. On the first floor, we've got bedroom 1, 2, and 3 with a bathroom here, and then on the second floor, we've got another 3 bedrooms, one with an ensuite and one with another communal bathroom there. So she's got 1 room with an ensuite and then 5 rooms sharing 2 bathrooms, so it fits in with the bathroom to bedroom ratio. And the ensuite here makes a lot of sense to put it there. It might already be there actually. Yeah. You're not saying never put ensuites in. Where it makes sense, where they're already there, they can add value to rooms. So in this case, I think it makes a lot of sense. Now she's concerned about the condition of this. I actually don't think it looks too bad from the pictures, but as we all know with estate agent pictures, they can make a real dive look like a palace. But it's a nice looking house. They're all decent sized rooms. One question that she has asked Julian is with regards to the decoration of the room. So you're quite passionate about your feature walls. And she's asked a question around, how would you decide which wall you make a feature? What color schemes would you tend to work with? And what would you use as the neutral color to offset that feature wall? Obviously, we don't want bright purple all round. So how would you go about deciding how you were going to decorate the bedrooms in a house like this?
Okay, the first thing with that house is it's full of furniture. So I don't know what it's going to be like when you pull all that furniture out.
Sure.
So in terms of the condition, the first question was, what about the condition of that property? It's a difficult one, and it seemed like there was quite a bit of wallpaper there as well. So I don't know what you're planning on doing, whether you're going to keep it as it is, or whether you're going to get it all stripped out and start again. I don't know what the condition of the wallpaper is on those walls, whether it's got anaglypta on it, whether it's been replastered or what. So that's a big area that because I can't really see the pictures that well, I can't really comment too much on, apart from the fact that you'll have to wait until all the furniture's out before you know whether you can start, how easy it is, or how much you're going to have to spend on things. If the layout's okay, I didn't really get to see the bathrooms or the en-suites and sort of what condition they were in. So it's a tricky one. I know that I think I've got a conversation booked in with Jacqueline, or we're going to have a conversation next week about it, so we can talk about the detail then. But if we're going to be talking about feature walls, I've always gone by gut feeling, to be honest. It's, but I do want to show you some pictures. Can I share the screen? Can you see my screen? Okay, I'm going to share the screen, and I'm going to go on to Google. We've got some. I'm going to go to Google, and I'm going to go.
Yeah, I can see your screen.
I'm going to enter in show home bedrooms, and you'll see a pattern when I show you the images. Can you see all the images there?
I can, yeah.
If you look at all these show homes, actually, I've got my own personal style, to be honest. Now, if I was going to click on an image on this page here, I would probably click on this one, because I quite like that, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
That's a grey neutral, and you've got a grey feature wall behind the bed. So if you look at this one here, the feature wall is behind the bed. If you look at most of them, the feature wall is behind the bed.
Okay.
So as a rule, I would say that you should put the feature wall behind the headboard. It looks pretty good. When you're walking into the room as well, it's good if the bed was located so that when you walk into the room, you look at the feature wall as you walk into the room in front of you. That's not always possible. If it's a narrow room, if it's quite a small room, then I would paint a feature of that room. So if you've got like a small wall, or let's say an odd-shaped wall with a curve in it or something, or a corner piece or something, I would just paint a small part of it, or I would paint the wall that's behind me, so that it doesn't actually, when you walk in, it doesn't make the room feel any smaller. If it's a small room, as a rule of thumb, I would normally go quite safe and paint it in a kind of light brownish, chocolatey brown. I wouldn't go too mad on colour in a small room. But if it's a larger room, then you can be fairly creative with it. Also, if the room is dark, you don't want to make it even darker by putting in a really dark feature wall. So if you've got a dark house, then I would be very careful, as I wouldn't normally add colour into a dark house. I would just use darker neutrals. So like a beige colour for the feature wall, and everything else would be creamy colour. But there's some great pictures here. I would just, as a rule of thumb, behind the bed, behind the headboard, as a rule of thumb.
Okay. And what about, once you've done that decoration, actually dressing the room, dressing the house? What degree do you go to?
Okay. This is where it can depend on where you are, because if it's a really posh location and you're wanting to add huge value, then you obviously just spend more on the bits and pieces. But so if I was going to write this down, I would say that on the bed, if you've got a bed, you should have a headboard on the bed. But if you've got a bed, I go to IKEA and I buy a mattress protector. They're really cheap, the mattress protectors at IKEA. Make sure it's the right size if it's a double bed. Then I buy a bedspread that goes over the bed. I don't put a duvet on the bed, because I don't want a load of duvets, second-hand duvets, in my properties, and it just doesn't make sense to use duvet. So I get a bedspread, put that over, and then I put 3 cushions on the bedspread. So it's basically a mattress protector, a bedspread, and 3 cushions. If you want to just upgrade that a little bit, you can buy a little throw and put that at the bottom of the bed as well. But that's typically what I do to the bed to dress the bed. Then a bedside lamp and mirror or a couple of pictures, and that's pretty much it. And a waste bin. That's pretty much it. If you want to make it look smarter, then you just spend more on the fittings, more on the lamps, more on the cushions. Just take those more up market. If you want to do it at low price, then you go to Range and you buy everything as cheap as possible. But still, just use the same ingredients. You just use better quality ingredients.
Okay, but
on a lampshade.
You take most of that out when you actually let the room, don't you? That's purely to dress it.
I don't take any of it out.
Okay.
No, because if it's just all it is, the lamp the lamp will stay. The only things that could really get taken is the throw and the cushions, and they don't really cost that much, to be honest. And what I tell the tenants is, look, put it on top of the cupboard. If you're not going to use it, put it on top of the cupboard. And then when you want to leave, when I'm doing viewings, would you mind putting it on the bed so that so it just shows the room off nicely? And that's what the tenants tend to do.
And what about in the communal areas?
What do I put in the communal areas?
Yeah.
Okay, if it's a student property, IKEA do these really cool shoe storage boxes. I've forgotten the name of them. They're plastic things. And when I put those in, mirrors and pictures. Mirrors are good because they lighten the place up, but always put some mirrors and pictures up. You can buy cheap round mirrors. Don't have to go mad, but you know, a few bits and pieces here and there.
Okay, perfect. And to help bring this to life, Julian, you suggested you might be able to do a live transformation for us, but you would need a picture to work with. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've got a couple of pictures of different rooms here. What's going to work best for this, for you to show us how you can take a room from?
Email me the pictures.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to open Photoshop. This is a tricky one. I've never done this before, okay? And I hope you haven't sent me anything too complicated. And if it's going to take a bit too long, we might have to stop. But I did this the other day, so and hopefully it'll be fairly simple.
Okay, well, I've just sent you one or two that hopefully will work. Now, whilst we are waiting for these to come through.
Yeah, I mean, you can ask me other questions while I can try and multitask, so if you want to do that, that's fine.
We all know that's destined for failure with
Well, let's give it a go. So we can prove that men can actually multitask.
Yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it?
It would be. Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Is that what you're going to send me? Are you going to send me that picture?
Does that work for you? Can you work with it?
Look, if I have to work with it, I have to work with it. Okay.
Okay. Whilst you're pulling this up, let's just prove this multitasking theory. Someone else has asked about the bills and utilities side of things. So obviously, with virtually every HMO these days, bills are expected to be included in the rent, but they've asked more around what you actually provide. So I think what they're meaning here is in terms of like the TV package, broadband, that sort of thing. To what degree do you provide these facilities for your tenants?
So the question was, what do I do with the utilities?
Yeah, so are you providing, Sky Sports and Sky Movies? Are you just providing them broadband? What about, do they have control over their own heating, or do you control that?
I basically find the best supplier, the best utility supplier in the area, because they do vary area by area. So in my properties, it's EON, EDF Energy, and I've gone dual fuel with those people. So it's electricity and gas. So I've tried to keep it as simple as possible, because I did try one of these companies that does it all, but I just found them to be quite expensive compared to if I would have just done a bit of legwork myself at the beginning. So go dual fuel with them, and then you've just got water. That's just the water board or whatever it is, and then Broadband, I tend to find a low-cost supplier, so I've got PlusNet for mine, and they're always doing deals, so I've done that. And so that's how I do my bills. And then I put in TV aerials in all the bedrooms.
Every single room, okay.
Yeah, in every single room. That costs probably around about £100 a room. It's not cheap to do, but I put TV aerial connections in every room, and then and just make sure I've got an aerial connection in the living room. So yeah, that's what I do.
So fairly simple. Okay. Well, someone 266 has asked, going back to the room decoration, what's the minimum furniture that you would put in a bedroom?
Well, I always furnish a bedroom in the same way, so it's not what's the minimum furniture I put in. I always put in the same furniture. So if it's a bedroom, if it's a double room, I'll put in a double bed, bedside cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a large room, I'll put 2 bedsides in, but I try to normally get away with 1, to be honest. But that's just me being a cheapskate. But 1 or 2 bedside cabinets, a wardrobe, and a chest of drawers. So bed, bedside cabinets, wardrobe, chest of drawers. If it's student property, you have to put a desk in. I've actually put a couple of desks in a property that I've just done, which is a professional, because IKEA have got these amazing desks for like 30 quid, which are glass desks, and I just thought they'd add value to the property. So I bought them and just put them in because I thought they looked really smart. And so that's what I do. That's the furniture I'll put in. Then I just dress it. So that's what I do. That's the furniture. That's the furniture.
Yeah.
If it's a small bedroom, then I put a 3/4 bed in, and I put in a wardrobe with drawers. It's called a combi wardrobe. So I don't put in the chest. I put in a combi wardrobe instead of a chest, because the combi wardrobe has got 2 drawers in it, or 3 drawers sometimes.
Yeah, I know the ones you mean.
Yeah, so I'll do that. That's what I'll do in a small room, because it creates more space. And I put a 4-foot bed in rather than a 4'6".
Yeah, well, some of the landlords we deal with only ever put 3/4 beds in, and their reasoning is that they don't want to encourage 2 people to share a room. They don't want to encourage the guy to have his girlfriend sleeping over, or vice versa. So they think by putting a 3/4 bed in, they're going to discourage that becoming a regular occurrence.
Do you know what? I think if it was a bloke, I think the bloke would normally be at the bird's house. Sorry, I'm saying bird. The girl's house. I'm going to get. If it's a girl, then it's more likely that the girl is going to have her fella staying around. And I don't think if it's a girl and she wants her boyfriend to stay around, that a 3/4 bed is going to stop that from happening. Really? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
So I just don't think that really holds any water, to be honest. If it was, yeah, I know what I was like when I was young. There was no way a 3/4 bed was going to stop me from going to my in fact, I think when I got my wife now, she had a futon, and that was great.
And you still made it work?
It was much better than a bed. It was really good. So
okay.
No. So what the hell? I just don't think that is good. I just think if it's a big room, sometimes if it's a big room and you put a 3/4 bed in it, it's going to look lost in that room.
Yeah.
So so no, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. I would I would just put a double in a big room and
Okay, and just talk us through what you're doing or what you're trying to do with this room here.
Just trying to make this room from what it was into something a little bit smarter, without just because it really is a horrible room. I would not have laminate.
It's a blank canvas.
I wouldn't have. It was not really a blank canvas. It's just a horror. Feng Shui wise, there's no window in this room. So you've just got to assume the window is on the other side. It's got these 2 kind of weird built-in cupboard things that are pretty gross. But let's assume that we're not going to go mad and start rebuilding this whole bedroom. We're just going to be realistic investors, and we're just trying to make this room as nice as possible without going mental. So let's just have a look. I would never put laminate floor in a bedroom.
What's the reasoning behind that?
Because it's cold, and it's just cold. It doesn't have any warmth to it at all. It's all right in a kitchen, but not in a bedroom. It just, it's just cold and doesn't feel homely at all. I would always put carpet in a bedroom, so I'm going to change that now. So I'm just going to go into there, carpet texture. Any other questions?
Yeah, well, someone's just emailed me one, and it's a kind of how long is a piece of string question, so I apologize, but they've asked it, so I'm going to ask you. Do you have a typical budget for renovating an HMO, a cost per room, or how do you work out in advance how much it's going to cost you to renovate an HMO?
Okay, I would just say that anywhere between 5,000 and 35,000, give or take 5 grand. That you cannot. This is the thing. It's a good question, because I get people going, I've got this house, I've got a budget of so and so, and I can't go over that budget.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, but it needs.
The budget shouldn't be defined by how much money you've got. It should be defined by.
Well, it's like taking your car to it. Well, I keep on using cars, and as a thing, I must have I must be into cars, but it's like taking your car to a garage and them saying, look, it needs a new engine, it needs a new gearbox, it needs a new this, and it needs a new that, and you going, well, I've only got a budget of £200. What's the guy at the garage going to say? You're buying a property. If you've got a budget, then buy a property that. If you've got a small budget, then buy a property that only needs a small amount of work doing to it. That's the only advice I can give on that one. And if you don't know how much it needs spending on it, then one other thing I would recommend is that you find somebody that you can go around and who can evaluate that property for you. And if you've got to pay him to do a bit of nosing around and giving you some good advice, then I'd pay somebody to do that kind of refurb evaluation before you get involved in it. That's what I would do.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, somebody made a very good point on the HMO forum, one of the forums, to say, look, you pay a contractor, because if you're going to get people out, I get this all the time. I get it all the time, and I've just kind of have to stop doing it, because I just can't afford to spend loads of time with people running backwards and forwards to see lots and lots of properties, because very rarely do the properties that I go and look at actually come off. So I end up spending all my time running around, looking at properties and giving them an estimate of what I think it's going to cost, when I've got other jobs to do. If you think you're going to be looking at lots of properties and you want to get contractors around to quote and give you prices, and every time you find a property, you're going to ask 3 people to go around to give you an estimate, and then you find and then that doesn't happen, and then you've got to find another property, and then you've got to find another 3 people to go and give you estimates of what you think it's going to cost. Then it's just that you're going to run out of people before too long. So maybe get someone on board that can help you out on a more regular basis and pay them something to do property inspections for you, and just to give you an idea of what the costs are when you go into something. And that's it. If you don't have that experience to be able to price things up. The other thing is, when you go looking at property, an estate agent only give you about 10 minutes to look round, so you've got to kind of estimate what it's all going to cost in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So only someone with who's done it before, worn the t-shirt, is going to be able to go in there and kind of give you a kind of a guesstimate quickly. You've got to remember that when you're trying to find good people. Yeah. What was the original question again? I'm multitasking.
They were asking if you had a standard price per room, or how you worked out estimations. But I think you've covered that in.
Yeah, you can't. There isn't a standard price, because every property is different, and how long is a piece of string? Yeah, how long is a piece of string? I would say avoid properties that look like they've had loads of DIY work done to them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so if it's the house that Jack built, then you're going to uncover more problems than are visible. Yeah. Is that what you're getting at?
It may look good. It may have lots of nice feature wallpapers on it, but if it looks like it's been botched, then I would be very, very careful.
Okay. Now, someone is referring back to the last time you were in Manchester, and you maybe got into a bit of a discussion about boilers and boiler capacity for HMOs. I think if I remember the night rightly, they were discussing capacity. If you've got loads of en suites in a house, how do you make sure you're going to have enough hot water for them, and so on. And they've asked what systems you put in your HMOs.
Yeah, what as in what heating system do I put in? What boiler do I put in? Or what type of system should I use?
Is that okay? So they have said, what type of heating system do you put in?
Well,
I guess they mean heating and hot water.
Yeah. Well, if it's a property where I've got maybe one shower or two showers, then I would use a combi boiler.
Okay.
And the output, let's say you've got like different outputs. The higher the output, the more water pressure, more hot water you're going to get coming out of it. So yeah. So I would use a combi boiler on something. If you've got lots of bathrooms or you've got lots of demand on water, then I think I'm good. I think, by the way, this picture is the worst picture you could have sent me.
Oh, it's good to see you.
I'm normally quite good at this, but this really is horrific. I'll do my best. So if it's a larger property with, let's say, 3 en suites and a bathroom, for example, then you're going to have to use a different type of system. You're going to have a different type of system. You're going to have to use a system boiler, not a combi boiler, a system boiler, because that's connected to a tank. So be it an unvented cylinder or a standard cylinder, you'd have a standard, you'd have a system boiler, and you'd have a tank, because the tank will give you plenty of hot water. Will give you enough hot water that you need. A combi boiler isn't really good enough to give you hot water for more than, let's say, 2 showers, 2 bathrooms, for example.
Yeah. Okay. Now, we've had a follow-up question on the cost per room, this time specifically related to furniture. So they understand, the cost can be difficult to estimate depending on how much work is needed. But what about when it comes to furnishing? Do you have a typical spend per room depending on which type of market you're targeting?
Funny enough, no. I've always been able to get away with using pretty much the same furniture. I've just dressed it. I've just spent more money on the accessories.
Okay, so with the furniture you said you put in each room, what would that normally cost?
Cost. You see, I get things from people that are normally are either manufacturers or are importers. So I do pay less. I don't go to furniture pack suppliers. So I pay around about 60 quid for a wardrobe. I pay £45 for a chest of drawers. I pay £25 for a bedside cabinet. And I pay £55 plus VAT for a faux leather bed frame, for a bed frame. And I pay £55 for a semi-orthopedic above average mattress.
What was that, 55?
Yeah, 55.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's basically it, apart from some dressing, maybe.
The dressing items are what cost the money. The dressing items, obviously, I've kind of spelled those out what I buy.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, in total, that adds up to £240 a room, which seems very reasonable compared to what some people I know are spending on furniture. Some people are spending that on a bed alone, for example.
Well, then they don't have my HMO manual, do they?
Okay. Well, given that we've hit 9 o'clock, and we've got a few more questions, but
I think I'm going to have to give up on this bedroom. It's just awful. But
Julian.
I do have one that I did earlier, actually, that I did for somebody the other day, and I'll see if I can dig it out. No, I don't. I did one for somebody the other day where he'd asked me an opinion on a room, and I kind of redid it on Photoshop within about 10 minutes and kind of redesigned the room. That is a really horrible room. I'm sorry about that. It's those horrible cupboard doors as well, so I'm going to scrap that. But I
Well,
can
it looks a lot better than it did to start with, anyway.
well. So anyway, so yeah, because that was all about feature walls and stuff. So yeah, so sorry about that.
Well, you just mentioned the design manual, Julian, and I know that in that it's got lists of all of your suppliers, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
So can you just share a little bit about what that is?
Well, I've got one that I prepared earlier, so I will show you. So this is the offending item here. And what I've tried to do is I've tried to put everything that I've got in my mind into a manual that's fairly simple to operate. So as part of the manual, one of the pages here is my trade supply list. And on there it's got everybody that I use. My PA will help open accounts with people, and I've got formal arrangements with certain people that allows them to open these accounts, even though they really only sell to retailers. They will not normally sell to private landlords or anybody that is buying for as an end user. I've tried to choose companies that have got national reach, so that you can call them pretty much anywhere and they'll do a delivery anywhere in the UK. I've mentioned lots of people, but there's a couple that we can work with on a regular basis. There's others there that I've used for things like signature pieces and to do show homes and stuff like that. So that's there, and we just help people open a couple of these accounts. And then I've got my kitchen and joinery suppliers, my building material suppliers, paint suppliers, etc. And then there's sheets on furnishing, how to do communal areas, how to do feature walls, how to do blinds and curtains, how to measure them, kitchens, bathrooms, fire systems, heating systems. That's all there on fact sheets. And then there's 3 different, at the moment there's 3, I'm doing a 4th one at the moment. There's 3 interior design schemes which have got all the furniture described and laid out, including the dressing items as well, even what kitchen I'd use with them. And then there are colour cards with the paint colours that match the themes. And there's even a disc with the artwork, so you can even you can even get the artwork that I use, because I use my own artwork for these schemes to kind of create themed interiors. So you can even get the artwork printed, put them in IKEA frames as well. So that's the manual itself, and then the extra bit is you get a Skype call with me, and that we can go through your project. We can go through anything to do with the manual, and also people have my mobile number, so I do get calls from people on a regular basis saying, Julian, I'm at IKEA and I've got to buy this, or I'm at Johnson's Paints and I want to get this colour, does that work? And I'm trying to paint a feature wall, I don't know what one to do, and I'm putting in a central heating system tank. Should I put it in the loft or should I put it in one of the bedrooms? They come to me, all the people come to me, and I go through it with them, and it's just a way for me to be able to help people to create amazing looking investment properties that are going to serve them well. And that's the way I've thought of the best way to do it, by creating this manual. So that's what I've done.
This is for ideally then people who are about to start renovating something, I guess, or maybe they have something that's a bit tired and needs modernized.
Well, it's actually a wide spectrum of people. I've had letting agents buy these from me specifically because they want to systemize their refurbs and they want to be able to get hold of furniture cheap, so they want to access to my trade supply. So basically, it's a business in a folder. And there's also people that haven't been down the route of renovating property before, and they just want someone that's got their back when it comes to just dealing with the nitty-gritty of it all. So they know that they can give me a phone call, as long as it's not too many. But there's a guy called Steve that is just bought his first property, and I had a Skype call with him, and we went through the builder's quotes, went through the specs with him, went through the room sizes. So it's pretty much anybody really that wants to up their game and wants to apply a bit of interior design into their refurbs, be it somebody that's done it before loads of times and just wants to make a change and sees the value in it, or people that haven't done it before and want to do it right.
Perfect, and I guess it's probably as applicable to people doing up, single family homes, flips, whatever. It's not purely HMOs that this is going to be valuable for.
Well, it's been designed specifically for HMOs. If it is flips, then it's a lot simpler. But yes, it can cover flips as well. But flips are a bit different. Yeah.
So
it can certainly be anyone looking at staging properties, anyone looking at trying to just get into a bit of interior design. Yeah. So
if people want to get in touch with you and find out more, I mean, this isn't a sales pitch. We're not about to open up a buy one get a million free discount page or anything like that. It's something that you offer, and if people want to find out a bit more about it, where can they go? How can they get in touch with you?
The best way to do it is to email me at Julian, Julian, at iconliving, iconliving.co.uk. Julian at iconliving.co.uk. I charge £200 for the manual, and that includes the Skype call, and you've got my mobile number and you can call me, and so it includes a bit of me as well.
Okay, perfect. And you're going to be talking at property events up and down the country over the next few months as well.
Yeah, I'm also doing a training day in Wetherby, which is kind of goes with this manual. It's an HMO design training day on April the 25th in Wetherby, and if you go there, you get the manual free, and the price on that is $297, and I'm not VAT registered at the moment, so that's the price, $297. So you can email me as well if you want to find out about that course, but there's only a few places on that now. Okay,
perfect. Well, thank you for sharing that. Have you got time for a couple more questions that have come in?
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
So this one I think is interesting. If you are doing up a property where the walls are papered, would you strip the walls, or would you paint? Would you be happy to paint over the wallpaper?
It depends on how bad the wallpaper is, to be honest. Number one, it depends on how bad the wallpaper is, and secondly is how difficult it's going to be to take that wallpaper off. How much damage is it going to do taking that wallpaper off, and also how much I've got in my budget to do it.
Mm-hmm.
The answer to that question is generally no. I will not take off wallpaper if I don't have to, because I know how expensive it can be. Start putting it back again. I used to, if the property market changes and property prices go up and you can see the value in it, then brilliant. But we're not in that situation at the moment. So you've got every penny has to count. So if you've got a property that's got lots of anaglypta or wood chip or anything else, then keep it simple. Don't go too mad with colour. What I would do is I do paint feature walls in them, but I use neutral feature walls. I don't put coloured feature walls in that kind of a property because it just looks terrible. So I would keep it neutral. You normally wouldn't hear me say the word magnolia, but you might as well use magnolia in a property that's got loads of wood chip on it. But paint feature walls in a kind of coffee colour, and then add colour in the accessories and just put some imagination into it, and if you have to go to IKEA, go to IKEA, but buy a few interesting items and pad it out a bit. Take people's eye away from all that horrible wallpaper, and put some artwork up, put some mirrors up, and dress it a bit more carefully.
And you mentioned having a limited budget there. If your budget was seriously limited, well, first of all, you might want to reconsider going into the HMO market, because property is fairly capital intensive. But if you've got a limited budget, what's the one thing that you think is going to add the most sex appeal to an HMO room?
Carpet.
Okay, interesting.
Because if you've got to strip it all out. You've got to redecorate it. If you use a nice carpet with a good underlay, you don't have to go too mad. You just have to go a little bit higher on price rather than just do the average cheapest carpet. But go a little bit more expensive on carpet, and that will posh it up a bit. And also the quality of the decorator. Because if you've got a room that is pretty awful or a house that's pretty bad, you're going to have to empty it out, but you're going to have to get a good decorator in. Someone that can do a nice job of it rather than just to do a quick slap on the emulsion. Use a good decorator. So a good decorator and carpet.
Yeah, okay. So painting your own rooms is not the right way to save money.
Well, you've got to do what you've got to do. It might not be a way of saving money. It might be a way of saving cash money, and if you've got to do it, you've got to do it. I'm not going to say don't decorate your own house if you don't have to, but if you're going to do a crappy job, then it's actually not going to save you any money at all. But and door handles as well. So if you put nice carpet in and do a nice job decorating, you've got horrible old brass door handles on the door, then we're going to spend more money here, but change the old horrible door handles. I see it happen quite a lot where they'll paint everything magnolia and paint the doors white, and then they've still got these horrible old door handles on the doors. Change the door handles.
Yeah.
Little things like that, and do enough little things like that, and it'll make the house look decent.
Yeah, I've just had another one come in via email. You mentioned putting a TV aerial in every room that you do. Would you also put a TV in every room, or would you leave it up to the tenants to decide?
Leave that up to the tenants, yeah. Leave that up to the tenants. I mean, I was asking that question of myself today. Should I put a TV in the living room? And possibly I would put a TV in the living room. Possibly I would put a TV in the living room.
Yeah, but not every bedroom.
Not in the bedroom, no. I put the aerials in because the people are going to they might want to put a TV in their bedroom. All the people that I've got living in my houses have put TVs in their bedrooms. They can watch TV on the laptop, but they choose not to. They put flat screen TVs in their bedrooms.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember. I've stayed in a few shared houses over my years, primarily when we've been moving to a different location and been looking for something temporary. And the TV was always one of the first things that came into my room with me.
Yeah.
Maybe that just shows how sad I am, but Another question: how often do you wash or change the carpets? So I guess this is what's the kind of usable life cycle of a high quality carpet. Depends really on the individual tenants who's been in there, what they've spilt on it over the years, how many candles they've dropped on it, that sort of thing, doesn't it?
Yeah. I use a carpet that is called, actually the carpet that I use, and I don't know whether every supplier is going to supply it, but I think it's called Dublin Heathers. I think that's the name and the make of the carpet. I use different colours. I'm just going to bring up the carpets, the specifications that I use actually for carpets and flooring. Here we go. Hampshire. It's called Dublin Heathers. Is the manufacturer? It might be, yeah, Dublin Heathers. And there's another one called Hampshire. That's another one that I use. Flash Colour 78. I've got down there. Yeah, Dublin Heathers is one of them. So I just buy stuff. The carpets, I don't buy one carpet with just one colour. It's normally got flecks of colour in it to break up the break it up a bit. I don't go for that, and I will share screens now because I'm going to just share my screen and go to. Hang on a minute, I'm going to go there. I'm going to share my screen because I'm going to go to the typical carpet that a lot of landlords use. I'm going to go to carpets. Here we go. So let's see what because everyone seems to use the same brand of carpet, and it's got these little square indents in it.
Oh yeah, kind of waffle pattern.
Yeah, that waffle pattern stuff. Do you know what? I used that in one of the first refurbs that I ever did, and within about a week, because it was a refurb for an investor. Within a week, that person called me up saying, I want that carpet replaced, it's knackered. Someone had ridden a bike, someone had put their bike in the corridor and it had got grease on it and just couldn't get it out of that carpet. It looked awful. This stuff here, anything with like this really cheap stuff with a pattern on it, this stuff here is absolutely crap. It just collects dirt. It's really horrible stuff. and it just gets used so often. This one here is what I see this everywhere.
Yeah.
This kind of, see that stuff there? It just collects dirt in it. It's awful, awful, awful stuff. So I normally go 1 step, 2 steps above that, because
Okay.
I know that the carpet will look so much better, and I don't really end up having to clean it. And if I do, you know, it's a polypropylene carpet. So, you know, here you've got one. You've got, yeah, just here you've got. This is $9.99 a square meter, isn't it? This stuff here, but you know, I'd rather use that stuff, because I know that this cheap carpet doesn't last 5 minutes, and you can clean it and clean it and clean it, but it's just awful, awful stuff.
And we live in fortunate times where grey is very much in vogue at the moment. So where once grey carpets might have been seen as kind of commercial properties, now you can very much get away with using grey as a style choice, as well as it being hugely practical because it hides virtually everything.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing about grey is I've done. Am I still sharing screens?
You are.
Okay, I'm going to show you.
No, you're not. We've lost you.
Have we? Okay.
You're back.
Okay, so I just want to show you some recent refurbs that I've done for private clients. Because just to show you their interiors, because all I've done really is copied the interiors that I've been doing for real high-end clients, basically this was just all greys. So hang on, I can't.
And it looks great.
Through. So basically the interior, if I can find a picture of the living room, all I can do is really show you some of the sockets, and I don't really have any. I don't have any finished things, but this was. See that? It just looks grey. It's just a wall with grey, but that flat was a grey neutral, a warm grey, not a blue grey, but a warm grey. And then the next client that I showed that flat to said, "Oh, I want that colour," and everything was grey. Everything was grey, pretty much everything. And then just grey, nice grey feature tiles in the bathroom. You see that? It's great. And then you can mix wood with it as well. You can mix the dark woods or oaks. They look really good. And that whole house, everything was a grey colour, everything. So, you know, I've applied that into HMOs. That's why I use a lot of grey.
Okay, we've got a couple more questions, and we're getting on for 9:30. So let's rush through a few more. Someone has asked if we manage the HMOs yourself, or do you use a managing agent? And if you use an agent, what are your typical costs?
I manage them myself at the moment.
Don't put me out of a job here, Julian.
Okay.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I know a lot of people choose to because it is a complex area.
I want to be honest with you. Is that I think you've got to have to be a really good agent to manage HMOs. I think the thing with HMOs is they require proactive maintenance rather than reactive maintenance. If it's a single let, normally a problem isn't going to become too much of a problem if it goes through the standard estate agent route. They'll have people that can do the work, and it's sorted out, and it's done and dusted. But with HMOs, you've got to not only keep on top of maintenance, but you've got to inspect the property, I'd say once every 6 months properly. And if you find anything that's not right, let's say a shower door that doesn't fit properly, or maybe something that's leaked, or you know the oven is looking really manky, or some boxing in that was done in the bathroom has started to come apart, or there's cobwebs on the ceilings because the cleaner hasn't cleaned the ceilings, or a bit of carpet started to fray where the door plates are. There's so many little bits and pieces that can come up that if you deal with them before they become too much of a big problem, then you can just keep on top of it all the time. Then you're going to keep the property in tip-top condition for a lot longer. And I don't think letting agents do that.
No, typically they don't. We've heard a lot of letting agents say that they will do it, but very often they don't even understand what needs to be done. We offer it as a service, and to be fair, we typically only charge the same management fee that we would charge on a single-family home, but because the rents are much higher, our fee is considerably higher as well. But that includes either fortnightly or monthly checks where we are checking the fire alarm panels are working. We're checking that the communal areas are kept clear from a health and safety point of view. There is a lot more work that goes into it, and in some cases you are probably better off doing it yourself, because it's a lot of trust to put in someone that you've maybe only just met, who might claim to do HMOs but really know less about them than you do.
Yes, and I've not met a letting agent yet that can pick up a screwdriver yourself.
Yeah, but the thing is,
I don't want to slow down. I'm sure there's lots of good agents, but I just know that the moment that property becomes occupied, it's just going to get used, and it needs to be looked after. And it just might be me, and because the fact that I've refurbished, I do my own. I don't actually do all the refurbs myself anymore, but they're my properties. They're my properties. I just do not want to have problems with them. And I know the only way to do that is to keep on top of maintenance. And the only way to do it is to look at it carefully and inspect it and keep on top of maintenance and spend the money when it needs spending, and without question. So, if you can find a letting agent that can do that, then brilliant. But I don't know of one in this area that will do it, so I have to do it myself.
Okay. What is your advice on gardens for HMOs?
Get a gardener. Once every month or once every 2 months, but get a gardener, because the garden will. They do say that a garden adds value to a property, and so keeping on top of the garden, I think, is a really good thing to do. Personally, I've got a gardener that I employ. He only charges me 20 quid to give the garden a clean out, get all the crap out, weed the borders and cut the grass, and to clean it all up. And that's, for me, that's really good value, because the tenants love the garden. They sit out in the summer, and it's one of the reasons why I like the house. And so yeah, I'd have a gardener do it.
And would you leave a bit of greenery in there, or would you just pave it all over?
No, if there's greenery, I will. If I've got the confidence, I've got a gardener that will come around once in a while to cut the grass, and to I wouldn't do it as much as if it was my own garden, but maintain the garden for sure. And I wouldn't get rid of the grass. No, not if I've got a gardener. But I think most landlords probably wouldn't bother getting a gardener, so they'll pave over it. But a garden sells a house. And the houses that, and we talked about this before, about the fact that I just go for smaller HMOs. Someone might want to buy that property who they might be a family, and they might like a little garden, and that'll add value to that house. They say a garden adds £5,000. A well-kept garden will add £5,000 to the value of a house.
Yeah, at least. Okay. Follow-up question to managing your properties. How much time do you spend? You said that you do them yourself. How much time does it take you to manage a property on average?
Very little time, actually, because that's one of the reasons why I like to make the rooms look really nice. It's because I know that if I've got a room come up for rent, it's just going to rent to the first person that walks through the door. So I don't have to keep on going backwards and forwards and doing lots of viewings. So it's actually a time-saving exercise. It's not, it's an ease of management exercise. So in terms of when a room comes empty, I know that it'll let fast, which is what's happened. I know that once I've got tenants in, they stay for a long period of time. That's what's happened. I've got a key safe outside the houses, so if I do need to call somebody out, they can pick up the key, go straight in and do it. I've got a few contractors that I can call upon that if I need anything doing. I've got an odd job guy. I'll go around myself, make sure things are done, but very, very little time. I would probably say on average in a month. Oh gosh, on average in a month, on a house, maybe half a day maximum.
Okay.
That's not bad.
No, absolutely. It sounds like you've got good systems in place there that allows you to keep that. And obviously, if you've just finished renovating a new HMO, it's going to be longer than that, because you're going to have all of your rooms to fill in that first month. But then typically our average tenancy is about 9 months, so you should see a period where it's a lot lower than that, and then you'll maybe get 1 or 2 rooms empty at the same time, so you've got to build up again. It's a balance, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's another reason why I'm proactive on maintenance, is because, you know, if I know that I keep on top of things, I don't get calls for people saying we've got a leak, or we've got a this has happened, the carpet's coming out of here. You know, just keep on top of the maintenance, and that's what stops me from having to go backwards and forwards and have all that aggravation. And do a proper refurb.
Chris has asked, going back to TVs, with HMOs, does each tenant need to have a TV license? And I know there's some uncertainty around this one from a true legal perspective, but what's your opinion?
My opinion, if I said my opinion, it would be to break the law, probably. But my opinion is I'm not going to give my opinion, because it would be, you know, if anyone's, but you know what people do when they say things on the internet, you've always got someone at Inland Revenue or someone looking at you, so I'm not going to say what I do, but it should be perfectly obvious what I do by my answer.
Yeah, and I know obviously if you're providing a TV in the communal areas, you absolutely need to provide at least one TV license. If you're putting TVs in each bedroom, then you probably do need to provide a TV license for each bedroom. If I'd say you are complying with the law by providing a TV license for each TV that you provide, and then if the tenants choose to break the law by putting TVs in their own rooms, it's perhaps down to them to make sure they're complying. And you could probably write that into the contract as well, that you are providing a single TV license for the communal areas. They're not allowed TVs, and if they do, they need to provide their own TV license. I'm sure
the other thing is, you know, it's a massive argument at the moment, the TV license. I just had a big row, not a row, but my brother-in-law is one of the BAFTA judges. Amazingly clever guy, TV writer, and he was just saying how important the TV license is. So, you know, if there are any TV producers and TV people listening to this, then I would say that, you know, pay your TV license. It's an important part. It provides a valuable service.
Fair enough. I like that. I like that. Nobility there, Julian. Very good. Okay, let me see. There was one other question here about kitchenettes in bedrooms, and we kind of covered this earlier. I think it goes with the, well, maybe we didn't actually. What are your views on kitchenettes? For me, it's more down the LHA route that you'd consider putting kitchenettes in, but
no, I wouldn't do it. I don't think it's an LHA thing. I think it's down to the fact that it's a different type of property. It becomes a studio when you put a kitchenette in it. And I think you've got to deal with the local HMO officer, because I know somebody who put in kitchenettes and had the HMO officer come round and said, no, get rid of them. They're a fire hazard, and you're just not going to have them. And then you have to start looking at planning permission. You have to start looking at building regs. It's a different kettle of fish. So if you are thinking of putting in kitchenettes, then you need to speak to the HMO officer about it, because I know every council's different on things like that. If it's a really big room, I mean, it then turns into a smart pad. If you're putting a kitchenette in, and there's some really cool solutions for things like kitchenettes. There's some company called Elfin Kitchens. I don't know if you've heard of Elfin Kitchens.
I haven't, no.
I'll share my screen again, because this is really cool, actually. I actually quite like smart pads, but I think you've really got to have a certain type of property to be able to pull it off. So I'm just going to show you these Elfin Kitchens. So I keep on coming up with this lovely picture that you gave me. Thank you for that. Have you got my screen?
We do, yeah.
Elfin Kitchens. So basically, these are really cool because, can you see this picture here? So I'll give you an example here. So ELFIN, Elfin Kitchens, and basically it's an all-in-one unit. It arrives in one piece, and all you need to do is you get a template. You can download a template, and you basically get your electrician and plumber to put in the hot and cold water feed and power, and it just plugs straight in. So you don't even have to fit. It's just an all-in-one
cool
solution, and you can get them with microwaves, cookers. all different types of here's one here, look. Can you see that?
I can, yeah. That
So
looks pretty smart.
Stainless steel, it's got a fridge there, you've got a 2-ring hob, it's all stainless steel at the back. There's a cooker, microwave cooker, a sink, a tap, and then you've got storage cupboards above. So it's a really cool little solution for a smart pad studio property. Yeah, so they've got here pure student living. They've got them here. So they don't have any galleries, but yeah, that's the best solution for stuff like this. Yeah, so there you go. And they do all different types of combinations as well. So here's one in a student accommodation in London. Very clever solution, really clever, but it's not cheap because it's all part of a package, isn't it? So if you are going to put kitchenettes in, you've got to make the rooms look nice. You don't want to make them look like cheap LHA, crappy, horrible, cheap 70s style studio rooms that just attract the worst type of tenant. No, I do it smart, and I don't think it's necessary in a lot of cases. I don't think it's going to get you much more.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Well, Julian, we are out of questions, and
Okay.
I think that given the time should bring us to an end for this evening. Have you got any final tips or advice or anything else you want to say before we close out?
I just have to. All I would is the advice that I would give that I gave when we did our interview is that if you are looking at getting involved in property, build your network up as much as you can. If you are going to be looking at refurbs and you want to establish a good relationship with a contractor, and you want people to cast their eye over your properties before you actually start spending money, then I would consider teaming up with somebody, buddying up with somebody that you can pay them like a surveying fee if you see something you're really keen on and you don't want to waste their time, but you do want them to cast their eye over something and give you an honest opinion. And I would suggest that you pay for their time, you get them out to have a look at the property. If you've got limited time to value it up because you're viewing it with an estate agent, then I would say find somebody, buddy up with a builder, find somebody you can trust, and just give them a bit of money to come and view these things before you put your offer in, or before you instruct your solicitors. The other thing I would also recommend is don't forget about the roof. I'm doing 2 projects at the moment where the purchaser did not have a roofing report done, and one of them had dry rot. They'd gone through 2 buildings, and their floors, we had to take out ceilings and floors down to the basement, and they bought the property next door, and the dry rot went next door as well. So they had a 20 grand budget. That has now gone way over that, and that's all because they had a roof leak. And then another property that I'm just taking on at the moment that again didn't look at the roofing report, kind of thought the roof was okay because it wasn't really leaking that badly, but I've had a roofer go around and it's just absolutely knackered. So that's added 5 grand onto the refurb cost before we've even done anything. So first thing you do is check the roof. If it looks like an old roof, and get a roofing report done.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost you anything to get a roof around. Normally the estate agent will have a roofer that they recommend. Get them round to have a look. Always. Never forget about the roof.
Excellent. And that resonates with Vicky Wishay. I don't know if anyone on the call is aware of Vicky, but we did an interview with her recently, and she said the first thing she does, she'll get there 5-10 minutes before the estate agent does on any property she's viewing. She'll stand at the other side of the road and check that the roof is in good condition before she even steps through the door. So yeah, you're in good company there with that advice, Julian. So what I'm going to do then, I think we will end it there. We will call it a night. I hope everyone who had questions has felt like they have been suitably answered. If you've got anything that comes up in the next couple of days, by all means feel free to drop me an email, and Julie and I can knock our heads together and come up with an answer for you. This has been recorded, so I'll make sure you've all got the link to this if you want to watch it back and get some more information on whatever's been shared tonight. As Julian mentioned, he's got his HMO guide available, as well as the one-day course running later on in the year. So if you want more information on that, you can contact Julian at iconliving.co.uk. And other than that, just one final plug for my podcast as well. This night is here as a direct result of the podcast. We're interviewing a lot of great people. A lot of really successful property investors are taking time to share their story and their journey, and it's motivating me, and it should hopefully motivate you as well to see what's possible. A lot of these guys started out with very little and have achieved huge success in a short period of time. So if you want to hear their stories, they're coming out 3 times a week, available most prominently through iTunes, but also Stitcher Radio if you're an Android user, and on our website as well. You can find them at Inside Property Investing.
Can I thank you as well, Mike, for doing?
Well, you can, yes. I'll try not to blush.
You are doing a great job. So
thank you very much, Julian. It's nice to hear, and it's nice to hear the feedback we keep getting from our audience as well, who seem to really be taking a lot out of it. So we'll end the night there. I'll send out a short email tomorrow with links to everything, including the playback of this on YouTube, if, like I say, you want to go back and listen to it again. And other than that, I'd love to hear any feedback you guys have got, so feel free to get in touch with me either via email, through the website, or on Facebook. And I'm sure, Julian, you'll be happy to speak to people as well in the coming days.
If I've got time. I'm really up to my eyeballs with stuff at the moment, but I'll always try and call people back if they don't get me. So yeah.
Excellent, good stuff. All right, well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. We've run over quite considerably, but I hope you've all found it useful. So that's it. We'll close it down, and hopefully I'll speak to you all soon.